Hey guys, Jason here with Spectrum Labs. I got a short episode for you today. This one is with Blake Butler. He is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Association. In this short episode, we talk about Blake's conversations or insights from some of his different members. Some might be feeling optimism towards the future. Some might be feeling worried about their businesses and what might happen throughout and after this COVID-19 crisis. He also shares some insights about what to think about during this downtime or possible downtime for some of you about future opportunities, innovating, possible partnerships, and then he also shares some positive messages and some encouragement, which I think we could all use at this point in time, about how to think about things today and what to consider for the future, which there's a lot of uncertainty, but at some point we'll come out of it. Hopefully this conversation is helpful to you, and if you have any suggestions or questions about any topics that we should cover in the future, please feel free to reach out on our website at thespectrumlabs.com, and you'll find our contact information on there. So here is a brief and helpful and hopefully insightful conversation with Blake Butler. Blake, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on the Hemp Startup Journey. I hope that you're doing well today.
I'm doing great, Jason, and thanks so much for having me. It's real important that you're doing something like this in a time when we cannot gather publicly, but we still need to get the right information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're talking the beginning of April, I guess end of March. I don't even know what day it is. It feels so strange. But I think a lot of things have been changing on a daily basis. So I really want to dig into some things. You are a network extraordinaire. So you're always talking to people, politicians, people in our hemp industry. And so I just wanted to talk to you today and just kind of see what you're seeing out there in North Carolina, maybe US, and then just kind of some things that we can start to think about moving forward here today with a lot of the uncertainty that we have present.
I'd be happy to.
But let's just start here. First of all, just to give a little bit of context for folks, what do you do?
I'm the executive director of the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Association. We're a 501c6 trade organization in North Carolina, and we represent all the stakeholders in the industry, from the grower to the retailer to the processor and all the professional services involved. And we encourage that as an association. And I think that's why we've been successful in North Carolina, because we do have insurance agencies, attorneys, accountants, and others that are there to provide guidance for the grower or the farmer that's never needed a business plan or needed, to plan strategically, financially. So, our association, as much as we can, Jason, tries to bring us professional acumen into what we're doing so we can be seen as the most credible new industry out there.
Yeah, and I think professionalism is such a key word for our industry. We have a lot of great people. I think on the maybe not so great side, sometimes we've had folks coming in from a different kind of culture. And I think for the consumer, sometimes when there's a lack of professionalism, it sort of creates a certain stereotype, kind of a negative stereotype. And I think you and folks at your association bring that professionalism that we need so much to let people know that, hey, these people are serious. They're concerned about, whether it's our health or about the integrity of the industry. So I definitely appreciate what you guys are doing with that professionalism side of things. I think it's a word that we throw around a lot, but it's really important.
Well, and it's how you approach each challenge with a new industry. And I'll give you an example. Last year in North Carolina, we spent a lot of time and a lot of our resources defending our industry from a ban on smokeable hemp. Mm-hmm. And once the legislature and lawmakers tagged us with that term, smokeable hemp, it gave folks a different perception of what our industry was doing. As we know it, it's a different delivery method of CBD.
Yeah,
we know folks get relief from it, but there was a different picture that was painted, and we had to go down there and play defense as some were trying to define our industry. And in our case, we want to change that moving forward. And now that we do have a pause because of the coronavirus, it gives us a little bit more time as how would we approach this? In other words, I don't even want to use the term smokable hemp in any of our legislation or any of our activities going forward. What I would like to pivot to, Jason, is craft commodity flower, because that's truly what it is. The flower from the plant that takes different paths, whether it goes to a processor, it might go to a retailer to be used in a smokable fashion. But again, as a relief method, another delivery method for CBD for that customer. But approaching it with more offense and knowing what we know about North Carolina gives us an advantage as we engage again this year. The timing is unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people are panicking about, and I'm trying to calm everybody down, but there's really no answers of will we go back into session on April 28th? I would say no at this point, as far as the North Carolina legislature. Will we go into session at all? I'm not sure. I think we have to be realistic again, that there's other priorities that our lawmakers have to put forth right now based on what our state, our nation, our world is going through, and how it affects all businesses. And remember that we're especially vulnerable as a new business. And that's why we are continuously communicating with our members and trying to get a feel of where everybody is. And realistically, everyone is not going to be able to survive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case with small businesses across the board, not only in the CBD and hemp industry. And we have to be very aware, but as you mentioned before, we cannot be complacent, because we all got into this to do some good. We all got into this to tell an American story, to help our community, to turn away from the pill and look to a plant. And all that still stands. And it could become more important than ever before after we get through this crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we'll get through it eventually. Sometimes it's difficult, when you're in the middle of it, right? Like we're in the thick of it at this moment, and it's challenging. But I feel like I mentioned before we started recording, and just for myself, my mind is starting to lift out of the supposed fog of whatever you want to call it, whether it's like depression or just the huge amount of anxiety, the uncertainty. Right, just not knowing. I think it's one thing if somebody says like, "Hey, you're going to be shut down." As terrible as that might be, that's one thing. Like you sort of know, but I think when we just don't know, for nobody's fault, but we just don't have a clear picture of what can happen. We have numbers and data and estimates of what it could look like for the health of our nation, but then of course then we're talking about the health of our businesses, the businesses that you work with in the hemp industry. So we're just mired in so much uncertainty. So you talked about the feel of members and their mindset. You've talked to a lot of folks in the past few days. What are you hearing from folks? Like, are folks feeling positive? Are they, scared for their businesses? What are you hearing on the street?
I think it just depends how long they've been engaged in the industry. We have a lot of members that will be planting for their third year. And so they've learned some hard knock lessons the first and second year. But for the second year planter that might not have seen success with their harvest last year, we've been very honest with them. You have a 3-year license, and if you don't feel good about planting, you don't have to plant. I'll quote my friend Chase Werner from Triangle Hemp. He said, "I'll tell people to plant a garden and hone your skills once again. You can still have a few hemp plants, your license still exists. But if you don't feel like you need to get out there again and take that risk, then don't do it. You do not have to plant, because it does start with the grower." Jason, we need the grower, the farmer, to once again feel like there's a supply chain that exists after all this.
Yeah.
And I think you hit on a real valuable point earlier about folks being nervous, but I will tell you that I have used this once again to remind people that we love exchanging that poster on social media about the 10,000 uses of hemp. But in reality, we haven't even touched 9,999 of them.
Sure.
It's really true. And, knowing that we talk a lot about growing for fiber, and creating a new economic system within our country and not relying on China and the fiber that they grow for our hemp clothing and other byproducts. This might be our opportunity to see the industry as a true agricultural commodity and start to diversify. Now, I know a lot of growers and farmers aren't going to like to hear that because the cost per acre is going to be a lot lower. We're going to have to really go out there and convince the Patagonias and the North Faces and the Loomises Internationals to buy from our growers. So it's going to take a lot of cooperation and coordination. And quite honestly, it's a 3 to 5 to 7 year plan, and it's not a get rich quick scheme. But as we know, everyone cannot grow for floral purposes, for CBD. And after this, the market, in my opinion, is going to be even more challenging and trickier to find sustainability.
I think before this, the whole coronavirus thing started happening, there was a lot of talk, at least regionally in this area in North Carolina, folks talking about growing hemp for fiber or for specific consumer strains, maybe CBN or CBG. In regards to growing for fiber, one of the things that I heard often is that folks are saying, well, I can't grow it yet because the infrastructure is not there, so I can grow it, but there's nobody there to purchase it. Is that true, or what are you hearing? Are there people that can take that fiber and then turn it into whatever, furniture, or I've heard of hempcrete?
It's very true, Jason. We do not have the infrastructure in place yet. We do have a small operation in Siler City, North Carolina, a decorticator. That's the machine that can really break down that fiber one step of it before it's made into a product. There was a large facility in Kentucky, and unfortunately, they are no longer around, and they even discussed building a plant out in Lumberton last year, but the market conditions changed. But here is what we do have in North Carolina. We have NC State University. Mm-hmm. And part of the strength of that university system is textiles and engineering. And I think you and I discussed when we met that the next generation is really going to innovate on this space. I mean, I'm 51. I'm still fairly young, but I've been in this 6 or 7 years. And I'd love to see the engagement and the partnership with an NC State first, so we can truly figure out what paths to take with fiber. And then I think those companies could come along knowing that we're trying to figure out A to Z, not just a quick one-off kind of deal like, hey, let's grow a little bit of fiber and make this. Let's try to truly figure it out. And could it change North Carolina? Could we once again engage all the universities and the community colleges in the counties that need it so much and train folks for a new skill that can process fiber and have a co-op of 80 to 100 farmers growing hemp for fiber 50, 100 miles around? It sounds exactly like the Burley Tobacco Co-op days, because that is the model. The farmer grower should just be concentrating on that harvest and then getting back to that next planting and be able to bring himself together, co-op, if you will, with other farmers. And after it is dried or, just to be passed on. And remember, when you grow hemp for fiber, a big difference, Jason, is that can sit in the barn. It can sit in the barn for 9 months, for 12 months. It's not being consumed. It doesn't have the restrictions that we all need to place on our growers if they're growing for floral, because they've got to have it in a climate controlled situation to avoid mold and mycotoxins. So our processor's not going to take it unless they're going to have to clean it. And as you know, it's quite a process. Yeah. So you would just rather folks know what they're doing and be able to pass it on after that 7 to 10 day drying period to the processor. But on the fiber side, we can get ahead of the game. And once we form some partnerships and say NC State says, this sounds good, maybe we can do something together in the fall, then I think that kind of news going out there might pique the interest of some of those companies, instead of us just going out there saying, hey, pay our farmers to grow for fiber and create a new clothing line. I think we need some university partnerships to do it right, especially those like NC State that have a historical kind of portfolio of how they worked with textiles and continue to work in that arena.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this could be a good time for innovation and just thinking about, what am I or what is my company going to be focusing on after we get out of this pandemic? And so textiles, I mean, that could be a great idea. I like the idea of aligning with university. Do you know anybody there or a certain department that, everybody that listens to this, if we're in North Carolina, that should reach out to a certain person or department? Do you have any ideas that might prompt some action there?
Well, I think I will in a few months. I have talked to Dean Litton from the Plant Science School and others about how we could work together. But I think moving forward, once we figure out how to reapproach our industry in North Carolina, if that's part of the conversation, even our legislators, in my opinion, will be very encouraged, knowing we're trying to diversify across the state. CBD is tricky, and I use that term lightly, and what you go through with law enforcement and regulations. And I was thinking earlier when you were talking, even in a time like this, if we had just a simple statement from the FDA, like vitamin E has, as a supplement that's on the side of every bottle, this can help your immune system and keeps you with a healthy heart, just something like that, would help give some guidance, and we wouldn't lose credibility in what we build up. And I think that's real important in this pause too, is our industry worked really hard in the midst of not having any approvals from the FDA that CBD was safe. But what we see across the board is CBD is helping folks. Now, granted, we can't go out there and make any claims, but I definitely have not read an accurate story that CBD has hurt anybody.
Right.
And I believe, like so many of us, that the cannabis plant is here for a reason. And I think when so much else fails, we return back to our roots, no pun intended, and look for those plants that we know have multi-uses. And there is no plant out there that you can build with, that you can heal with, get relief from, that you can feed a population with by exploring more hemp seed and grain opportunities. There is not another plant out there, period. And maybe this will be a wake-up call in a way that we can play more offense, let people see our industry differently, as we really are trying to help now. Yeah. We're trying to do everything we can with this plant to help our communities and bring back the places, the small towns that need it the most. So I think if we all stay encouraged and realistic that we're going to lose some members, we're going to lose some folks, we're going to lose some growers. It's just going to be the nature of the beast with the changing market. But at the same time, if we stay encouraged and look for new partnerships and opportunities, I think North Carolina will be one of those top hemp states. I think agriculture is in our DNA.
Yeah. You're a true advocate. Like every time I've talked to you, I just feel it from you. So thank you for that, for being that voice. Besides possible partnerships between universities and hemp cultivators, any other, maybe just ask it differently, what other things should we be thinking about in this time? Right. I've heard of certain hemp companies that are doing well. I've heard of other companies that maybe they're not doing so well. So in a time of maybe pause, where we can consider what we can do after this turmoil, what are the things do you think we should be thinking about? Whether partnerships, whether new ideas, maybe pivots, absolutely getting out of the business, maybe. I don't know. But just from you have a lot of experience in this field. What are some ideas that you have there?
That's a great question. I think first we need to support our retailers. They are mostly shut down. In some cities, they're still open. Here in Asheville, North Carolina, where I am. Some of them are still open under the health and nutrition category. But as I talk to them, they do not have the walk-in traffic. Some of them are doing curbside pickup. But most of them are offering gift cards. And like we've shifted our website that even has your company, Spectrum Labs, on there, Jason, a great lab here, processor outside of Asheville. We're trying to do everything we can because everyone is moving into this virtual world. So if you do believe in our products and go out there and support our retailers on their online stores, that's so important right now. And I'll tell you why, is because what I mentioned earlier, sure, we have plenty of growers in the indoor complex and the greenhouse complex that are harvesting 2 or 3 times a year. But then we have that outdoor grower that's trying to figure out, should I plant again? And strength from the retailers that the products are still moving and there's still opportunity there would be a good sign. So if you can, please support our retailers. And the second thing I would say is that, I think we should all use this opportunity. It's going to sound kind of corny, to get healthier and just check ourselves.
Yep.
And I'm doing it. I'm trying to figure out how I can be more effective, how I can be better for not only what I do for our members, but just as our community and our town cities awaken again. I mean, we've got to have that kind of leadership and those people that go out there and say, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can come out of your house. We can gather again. I mean, it's okay. And I don't mean that to sound corny, but I do mean it.
Yeah.
Because, what I miss the most right now is being able to have those events. Last year at this time, we were getting ready to stage an event called Plant. We brought all our first-time planters from our membership to Lillington and taught them how to plant indoor and outdoors. And to think we're not going to be able to do that is tough.
Yeah.
So, again, support our retailers because they're in a real pivotal position to decide how long can I stay alive. And that really comes down to, can I still move the products I need to move online, because I'm not allowed to have my storefront open right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that'd be one thing. And the second thing, again, to be more of just a leader in our thinking, like our industry is, to go out there and take risks and just, have more of an assertive voice after all of this is over. And I just think, checking ourselves and being sure we're all doing that for those folks around us.
Yeah, completely agree. So it's probably a good time to start wrapping up. Is there any other message that you want to leave people with? Or if not, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Absolutely. If you'd like to learn more about our association, you can go to NCIHA.org. And when Jason shares this with me, I'll include it in the text. And we'd love to have you join us. Like I said, things are a little bit different in the next 2 to 3 months, and that we're going to be doing more webinars. We're trying to put together a planning webinar to take care of what I mentioned earlier, since we can't gather, as well as podcasts like this and any information that we can put out there. Our association is in support of it, and we'll do everything that we can. And, more than anything, just know that there is another side of this, and it's all up to us, of the attitude that we have when we come out of this. And, our industry and every small business needs support after it's all over, but we just got to support each other. So I appreciate you doing this, Jason, because this gives me an opportunity to share information with a lot of folks. And thank you very much.
Absolutely, Blake. Thank you. Thanks for being a good leader and keeping the positivity going. We can all use that right now. So don't stop and keep staying healthy. Awesome, Blake. So look forward to chatting with you next time.
Thanks so much.
Hey guys, and before you go, this is Jason from Spectrum Labs. Please be sure to visit us on the web at thespectrumlabs.com for any show notes and links discussed in the podcast. Also, remember to click the subscribe button wherever you may be listening from so you get notified when our next episode comes out. And tune in next show and have a fantastic day.